So we're gonna switch into our next topic, which I think the winner could get the winner of Bivol and Beterbiev. Possibly. This could be a thing, but we'll probably get a second one if it is an interesting fight. Like, let's be serious. I'm talking about David Benavidez and David Morrell. The Battle of the Davids is what's going to be going down. And this is going to happen January 25th, early next year. It's in Vegas. This is a massive fight, Bryan, and two young guys. Two guys, I think you could kind of say David Benavidez is right now, he's getting a lot of exposure. He's becoming that superstar. David Morrell, though, I feel like people are still sleeping on him. Very dangerous fighter. Both these guys, I would say, are in their prime. Your thoughts on this bout?
You say people are sleeping on David Morrell. I don't even know if a lot of people know who he is. So
That's
excited.
what I mean. People are asleep. Like, they haven't woken up yet. Yeah. All right. Like, this is a very good fight. This is like a crazy fight that's happening.
Yeah. So I'm excited about this because of that. I think David Morrell is legitimately really good. I'm curious to see when the odds drop. This is still, it's not like I don't know how official it is or whatever the case may be, but it's looking like David Benavidez himself basically confirmed it after it wasn't confirmed. It wasn't reported yet, and there was like a whole thing in like terms of like whether or not it was real. It turns out that it was after a while. But David Benavidez, like, respect for taking a test. It's very risky at this point. He says he wants to put on the best fights. I mean, this is a way to do it, and putting your money where your mouth is, so to speak, against a guy that you don't seemingly have to fight at all. But you kind of look around the landscape, and we're talking about the light heavyweight division a lot today for obvious reasons. But if Beterbiev and Bivol are 1 and 2 in whatever order, and whoever's won will win this fight. So we're going to have a 1 and 2 set after Saturday. These guys are basically next in line. Like, David Benavidez just moved up to this weight class. David Morrell too, actually, because both of them were just a super middleweight, moved up to light heavyweight. And the whole thing with David Morrell is like, we want you to fight better competition. Okay, here's David Benavidez. And with David Benavidez, it's like, all right, we want you to have a big fight because you're not going to fight Canelo Alvarez. And it's like, all right, let's get the best guy available. I'm super excited for this. I don't know.
Crazy. This fight's crazy.
Do you have an early lean on this? Do you have an early lean on this?
No, I don't. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I thought about it. Like, I'm probably going to make a game time decision.
Yeah,
I did this morning. Like, I went hella hard for Beterbiev, but I didn't know how I was going to bet this fight. I'm not going to lie to you. I still was unsure. I gave you 2 bets that I was leaning on for this fight. It was for Beterbiev, but I will say that was the biggest knock on David Morrell, right? Like, a lot of people aren't aware of how good he is, how skilled he is, how much power he has. He's very good. Right? Cuban boxer. Like, it's going under the radar, and everyone's been like, well, he's got to fight somebody. He's fighting David Benavidez, but this is a David Benavidez who, despite the fact that he won his last fight, his first fight in this weight class, people said it was a little bit lackluster. And he doesn't get the Canelo Alvarez fight. He wants it. Canelo's like, nah, fam, I'm going to fight Edgar Berlanga, and I'll see who I'm going to fight next. Like, Canelo's doing whatever he wants because he can. But this is a massive fight of 2 guys that are still really young. And like I mentioned, they could fight. The winner of this fight could fight the winner of Bivol and Beterbiev, depending on if we're going to get a second one. And I'm going to be honest, Bryan, Benavidez and Morrell, this could be such a great fight that there could be a second fight for this one too. That, like, do you have a lean on who you're going with for this fight? Like, are you leaning more towards? Okay, so you're unsure as well.
I want to rewatch, particularly David Benavidez' last fight, because a lot of people were critical about, like, hey, his power is not translated to light heavyweight. He also fought a really tough dude.
It wasn't an easy
who we
fight,
talked about earlier. And David Morrell is kind of hard to assess because he hasn't fought anyone nearly as good as David Benavidez at all. I don't know if he's fought above, like, with all due respect, but in terms of contendership, has he fought above a C-level fighter at this point in his career? Probably not.
But here's the one thing I'll say about that. Sometimes it's just business, right?
No,
but
it's not. I'm not saying it's his fault, but and to his credit, because people said this about, like, Roy Jones Jr., people said this about Naoya Inoue, people said this about Terrence Crawford. And listen, all you can do is dominate who's in front of you when it comes down to it. And I don't get the sense that David Morrell is, like, calling his own shots in his career, so to speak. So, like, this is who was put in front of him. Now, with David Benavidez, like, can you look at previous David Morrell
Yeah.
film, which I may try to do, and be like, hey, is he going to beat David Benavidez? It's going to be hard to assess, and you just have to either you believe in his ability or you don't at that point.
Yeah, and he hasn't fought anybody like David Benavidez. Benavidez has the resume over Morrell, but Morrell is such a dangerous fighter, and we haven't seen too much of him. And to go up in weight class and fight David Benavidez, that's massive. Like, and this fight isn't even that far away. Like, we're almost at the end of the year. And tell Inoue to stop fighting on holidays. Just want to say.
Oh my God, yo,
why? Why are you doing this to us? Are we gonna be on the Christmas again?
Christmas
It's on
Eve.
Christmas Eve. Christmas, yeah.
The morning of Christmas Eve, so it's not the worst thing in the world. But I tell you what, my girlfriend can't stand this dude because he keeps fighting on holidays.
And he's like the biggest fight. He's like arguably pound for pound number one, one of the biggest boxers in the world. But yeah, like Christmas Eve morning, that's tough, dude. You know what I mean? Because Christmas Eve, like that's one of the biggest days. Like I feel like that's bigger than Christmas because Christmas for me is like NBA day games.
Let me ask you. Yeah, I love Christmas.
It's a full
and
slate.
Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite weeks of the year, even though it's the end of the year. Let me throw a couple names at you. Who would win in a fight between David Morrell or Caleb Plant?
I like Caleb a lot. I like David Morrell. I'm very high on David Morrell. I also I love Cuban fighters. I love their style. I would pick David Morrell, but I wouldn't be surprised. Caleb Plant, like I think Caleb Plant can go toe to toe with anybody. And you could also argue that he kind of fought Canelo the best before he ended up getting Canelo ended up getting the TKO stoppage. I thought he fought Canelo pretty well and he had his moments. Who would you pick, Caleb Plant or Morrell?
I think Morrell might actually be the favorite there.
But it wouldn't be on like in a sports book though. Like I think Vegas would get that wrong. I think they would have Caleb Plant as the favorite. Wouldn't you think so?
I think it would open up close. I don't know. I wonder how a lot of people would bet that fight. I ultimately will probably go Morrell there at this stage.
Okay.
But Caleb Plant did close impressively in his last fight after an awful start against Trevor McCumbee. Awful start.
Yo, he had a great finish, right? That was a fight where I'm like, what's going on with? I think I messaged you on WhatsApp, and I was like, what's going on with Caleb? Like, yeah. I thought it was donezo for him, and then all of a sudden, like Trevor McCumbee though surprised me. Just saying.
And granted, Caleb Plant was super middleweight, and David Morrell is now light heavyweight, but he was just super middleweight, so we could still make this comparison. Would you take David Morrell to beat Boo Boo Andrade?
Yes. He's beating Boo Boo.
Would you take him to beat Alexander Gvozdyk?
Yes, he's beating Gvozdyk.
Okay.
And that's how high I am on Morrell. Like I think this is a great fight. I think he does have to fight better competition, but that's what he's doing. Now he's fighting one of the guys that is poised to take over the division in David Benavidez. This is a fight that, like, I can't believe we're going to get it.
Would you take him to beat Callum Smith?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't even
I didn't
have
think
to
you were going to hesitate on that.
I answered so quickly. I was like, yes. I started yelling. I don't even need to yell. I have a mic. Yes, I'm taking him over Callum Smith. Are you taking him for any of those guys that you just mentioned? Are you taking Morrell?
I probably also am taking Morrell, yeah. I'm the one I'd be less confident in is probably Caleb Plant.
Okay.
But because I think Caleb Plant's the next best of the guys I just mentioned.
Okay, can we get into some comments? Because I just saw a comment.
Yeah.
I want to get into
Let's
this.
do that. Let's do that.
Okay, and also we're gonna get into something super real Matias and Matchroom in just a bit. We're gonna get into this though. I like this comment because I think if you watch the show, you know, I am on Pacheco. Mm-hmm. I wanted Pacheco and Morrell until Morrell moved up. Now Pacheco, Munguia, or Berlanga is great fights. Give me Pacheco and Berlanga.
Yes. That's the one.
I want that fight so badly.
Or Munguia and Berlanga.
Yes, you know what? I rather get that first.
I think I'd rather that because Pacheco hasn't fought Canelo yet.
Yes, you're right. Okay, you know what? If Canelo fights Pacheco, I'm not gonna do a post-fight show. I'm gonna be so mad. If Canelo picks to fight Pacheco next, I'm not gonna do it, Brian. I'm not gonna show up. I'm sorry. Like you're gonna like let's do the. I'm not like I'm done. Like I'm not gonna do another Canelo fight. If that, like I don't want to see that happen.
Me neither. Diego Pacheco, by the way, we're both, you especially, but we're both very high on his potential. But he still has to compete at this sort of level, which is why I would say put Berlanga in there with Munguia first. I'm not totally convinced that Edgar Berlanga beats Diego Pacheco, by the way, and I say that as a Puerto Rican, but
I would take Pacheco right now.
like
Sorry.
I put, but he still hasn't yet. Like Pacheco hasn't fought.
Yo, hold on. Let me ask you a question.
That's a good fight,
Who
hustle
who
man. That you just left in the
yes.
comments, by the way.
Who are you picking if you had to pick now against Munguia and Berlanga? Do you have a favorite?
Mm.
I think that's a hard fight to pick.
So if you remember, before they both fought Canelo, and definitely before Edgar Berlanga fought Canelo, I said I'd favor Munguia in that fight. Now I'm a little less sure of that.
Ooh, okay.
I'm not saying that we need to be super impressed by Edgar Berlanga's showing against Canelo Alvarez. Ultimately, he won like 2 rounds and survived, and Canelo Alvarez looks like it's probably more of a tale of him not being able to finish guys anymore at this stage. But at the same time, I could argue that he might have fought better than Jaime Munguia did against Canelo, and Jaime Munguia has some shaky moments in his last fight, which tough fight. And he did finish and he persevered, and we got to stop like, oh, they struggled and that like they overcome something is like they show their resiliency in an effort like that. But at the same time, I still would like to see Berlanga's bounce back performance before I can make
Yes.
an assessment. Like,
A
let's
tune-up
see
fight
him
before that fight.
right. Let's see him against a Trevor McCumbee, as I mentioned. Let's see him against, one of these other guys at that level. Hopefully he fights very soon, because I think Munguia and Edgar Berlanga, like that's a big fight.
That's
You
a
know,
blockbuster fight, I feel like, to make.
it's not going to determine pound for pound rankings or anything like that, but it's a fight that will do very well, and you could actually sell Puerto Rico versus Mexico because you have 2 guys on the same tier.
And you had a great point in doing it for the weekend for Puerto Rican Day Parade. Like that weekend they could do it in New York.
Please,
With
yes.
Berlanga. Like that's a massive fight, and everyone loves the rivalry with Mexico and Puerto Rico. You know what's interesting? I was unsure, and I was leaning towards Munguia, but now I'm leaning towards Munguia even more after the Bazinian fight. I love how he fought in that fight. That fight to me was a great fight, and Bazinian had some great moments in that fight. And Munguia fought that fight so well. He was down in that fight, and he proved me wrong. I was worried about Munguia for a little bit, and he just turned it up. And I was like, you know what? That Canelo fight changed him. He was a different fighter after that. And that win to me, I would lean towards Berlanga. But like you said, Berlanga now needs that tune-up fight because he might look extremely impressive and have a fight like that.
Yeah, Bazinian's another guy that I think Edgar Berlanga could fight. And Hustleman mentioned Christian Mbili. He's a guy that we should just say his name as it relates to this conversation. He might actually be the next Canelo opponent. And I'm not like, I think Christian Mbili like kind of needs to show more before I can be like, he's going to win this fight. But I'm intrigued. I'd be intrigued by that.
Yeah. Let's get to that comment.
Oh, right. Hustleman. Yeah, he said that Hustleman's
Pacheco
carrying the comments. Yo, where's the rest of the comments, yo?
Let's go to a
Hustleman's
new friend of the
killing
show.
y'all. No, we have one here that I want to get to, but I did see this. Edgar Berlanga versus Gabriel Rosado is a rumor. Rosado
That's
is
a good
actually
fight.
calling for it. It's a fun fight, and it's a
Rosado's got power. Like Rosado has some of the best knockouts to watch. Like go watch his highlights. Sometimes I just like go on YouTube and I just watch like knockouts. Rosado has a pretty good package that you could find online for his highlights in terms of his knockouts. So it's really interesting.
Rosado hasn't fought since April of 2023. He is 26-17, but he's much more competitive than his record would entail. He's one of the best, with all due respect, journeymen that we've probably had. Who he's been a contender before. So like, that'd be an interesting and also dangerous fight for Edgar Berlanga.
Very dangerous.
We know what Gabriel Rosado's coming to do. Like,
and that's a fight where like Gabe is a live dog. He's a live dog in that fight. You know what I mean? That's an interesting fight. This is a great comment. I don't want to mess up the name. Brian, maybe you could try, because Brian's an author, so I trust him. Buy the book too. If you're gonna promote your YouTube channel,
Jadala Ahmed.
Promote your book too.
I think it's just Jadala Ahmed. David Morrell will beat Artur Beterbiev, Dimitri Bivol, and the only stress David Morrell will have, which I don't think he will be able to beat the boxer, is David Benavidez.
Ooh, that's like a really good hot take.
Yeah.
Very good hot take.
I don't know if I don't know if I agree, but I mean, listen. To your point, if David Morrell beats David Benavidez, let's just say he does. This wasn't your point at the end, but I'm just because this is his next fight. If he beats David Benavidez, and if he does it convincingly, am I going to sit up here and be like, he can't beat Dimitri Bivol, Artur Beterbiev, the winner of that fight?
I don't think I'm ready to say that, though. That's the only thing. Like, I'm not ready to say that either Morrell or Benavidez would beat Bivol or Beterbiev.
No, we got to see the fights first.
Yeah, like and they've been doing it in this weight class. Like Morrell and Benavidez have just come up. Morrell's coming up to this weight class. So I don't think I'm ready to say that just yet. Let's get to some more comments. Nerd, good friend of the show who we haven't seen for a minute. Thank you for joining us this morning. Benavidez is back with Memo. Okay. So I will expect better vision with more stamina and resistance.
Okay. Dave Benavidez
is conditioning always the knock on him? Do you feel the conditioning? Like I thought
that's a recent thing because he was actually being lauded for his stamina before that, particularly at super middleweight. I don't know. I don't know how much of this is an overreaction from his last performance, which wasn't a bad performance. It just wasn't to the level that many expected. People expected him to get a stoppage, and he did not in a new weight class.
Yeah. Let's stick with Nerd. Benavidez beats Morrell real good. So leading towards Benavidez. Yeah, like it's a possibility Benavidez is that good. Like he just gets on a tear. And once he gets in a rhythm, it's like, it's dangerous. It's scary. They don't call him the monster for nothing.
All right, Ryan, like going at a new comment.
Whoa. Ryan is a good friend of the show, but he does bring the heat.
Yeah, Sky
sure
Nicholson, by the way, is
this is hilarious. I'm sorry. I can't contain myself.
Sky Nicholson will stop Usyk in 4 rounds. Keep it clean, as the referees would say. In the comments, not clean. You can curse.
I will say though, this is a pretty respectful way to like get on somebody. Ryan, I appreciate that. Like
Sky Nicholson's good, by the way. Sky Nicholson's good. She's I think a featherweight champion.
I'm sorry. That was one of I haven't laughed like this on the show because that was one of the funniest comments I've ever seen.
She an undisputed? I think Sky Nicholson's an undisputed. I haven't played the game yet. I have it. It's there. It's there. I downloaded it and everything, but I haven't popped it in yet. I haven't had time because work. But I'm trying to. We're gonna talk about that next week. By the way, might as well say that we're gonna talk about Undisputed next week more in depth once we both play the game because we both have it. We've both been busy, but we're gonna do a whole segment on just that because we're both gamers. And we've been looking forward to the game for a minute.
Whoa, Hustleman Sky Nicholson beats Amanda Serrano, but y'all not ready for that conversation. I don't know about that.
Let's talk after Taylor Serrano too, is what I would say.
Ooh,
I kind of think
that's coming up.
I kind of think Katie Taylor is going to win that fight. But yeah.
Okay, so I think because I thought Serrano won the first fight, dude.
Me too, but now I'm a little worried. Like, all right, like getting up there a little bit. Been in some big time fights and not really knocking people out anymore. I know she just knocked out Stevie Morgan, but we saw Stevie Morgan and we're immediately like, oh, this is why you couldn't find any of her fights. This is why you couldn't find any of her fights on YouTube, and all of her fights were in like Venezuela and shit. Like she clearly was not.
And then Brian sent me a YouTube ad that Stevie Morgan was in, and I was like, why is this YouTube ad playing for 2 minutes? And then I realized it was a video. Okay,
she was like being like, it was like in a corporate office. She's a businesswoman in Tampa.
Yeah.
Hopefully didn't get wiped out by the hurricane. If you're watching this and
it's really sad stuff, man. Yeah. Really, really sad stuff down in Florida. Hoping everybody's safe down there. Let's get to 2 more comments, Brian. I'll let you pick them, and then we should move over to some other big news about Subriel Matias if you haven't heard.
Yeah, let's see. All right, now we have Sky Nicholson slander in the comments. I would interview Sky Nicholson also.
I would like to, for sure.